But I like your hot take for this week. Women should race the same course on the same day as the men.
Yes.
And I'm guessing you mean in
like the Tour de France
cycle races,
and
in like
whatnot.
UCI races.
Yeah.
This is so they do in some respect in some races, but do you mean they should race the men?
No, it's just on the same day. You know, like in the marathon or whatever, they release the men at a different
Release the men.
Release the men at a separate time to the women's.
Mhm.
Like, should it be a similar thing in road racing?
So 2 years ago, at Strade Bianchi. So Strade Bianchi, they do that. So the women go, and then the men come a few hours afterwards.
Right.
The only problem is the men's distance and the women's distance is not the same. So the women's distance is shorter, and they were doing like, I think they did like the last, I don't quote me on this, I was there because I was shooting for Ceramicspeed, so we had the girls in the race. The only girl that finished was Cedrine, because the rest of the team got booted out of the race because the men were coming.
Okay.
So this is part of the problem, is
Right.
that they got to this point where on the women's circuit, they had a circuit towards the end. So you came along, did your stage, and then you did a lap, and then you did another lap, and then went to the finish. The problem was they went around the lap, and then the blokes were too close to start in that point, so they booted all the women out that were past a certain point.
Right.
No, like they weren't miles and miles and miles behind. They were probably in the gruppetto, like the men's had their own gruppetto. But because the men were coming and they were prioritising the men's race for the coverage, they didn't want them to have to come through the women. Obviously, it'd be dangerous anyway if like the men are riding through. But at the same, like the organisation, I think let the women down. Yeah. Because, but I understand how difficult it is, because if you are setting off the women, it's all about timing in the race organisers. It shouldn't be impossible for them to set the women off.
Why didn't they just do it the other way around, where the men?
Because what will happen, and sorry if you don't like this, but what will happen is the men will go, everyone will watch that, and no one will give a toss about the women. Once the men's done, everyone will leave the streets. No one's going to stay around and wait to watch the women do it when you've already seen Pogacar win or Pidcock or whatever. And that is not right, but it is the truth of it.
Okay.
So they do it because they set the women off first, because that way the people come earlier. There isn't the difference in the spectatorship for the women's and the men's. I've seen it firsthand in Siena on the day of Strade Bianchi, is absolutely night and day.
Right.
You got Demi Vollering winning, but there's probably, without even exaggerating, 5 or 6 times more people at least on the streets for the men.
Yeah.
And they stay for far longer.
Yeah.
So even when they did the Tour de France FAM, the turnout for that was fantastic. But you went and saw the men, and it was at least double, probably 4 times the amount of people.
Yeah.
Maybe more. So it's a really difficult thing, because I really think that the women's side of the sport should be just as invested in and promoted and prioritised, and the racing should be organised in a way where the men and the women get to race in that way, so that the women can go, they can have their race and everyone can enjoy it, and then the men can come through or whatever. Set them off earlier so that you're not stood around waiting for hours and hours for the spectators. But then you've also got the race coverage. Whilst the women are finishing, the men are started. These races are 100, like Strade Bianchi is 200 whatever K? 190K or something, I don't know but anyway, they're hundreds of kilometres long.
Yeah.
So they're racing for 5-6 hours, 7 hours in the classics sometimes. So the coverage, you can't have the coverage of both races if they run on the same day, because you'll have 15 hours of coverage, and then it's going to be like,
good point in it.
It's really tricky.
Yeah.
And I understand the difficulties. I would be very keen to hear people's comments on this, because this is clearly something I'm very passionate about, because I've literally being in that women's world tour for a year and seeing how that is at certain races like the Tour de France, where it was just for the women, and how they organised it, but then being at the Tour de France men's and seeing the difference there just from 2 days, to being at races where the women and the men race on the same day, and seeing the contrast and the difficulties and how unfair it seemed for all of the people who work at the teams, who are all the soigneurs and all of the mechanics and everyone who have put all this effort in, just to be told that 5 of the girls have been just taken out of the race because the men are coming. What?
Yeah,
like
that's
it's
a bit of a
absolute
joke, isn't it,
BS.
really?
But at the same time, I understand the difficulty of it, trying to
Mm.
organise that logistically. But to me, it could still be done better. Like they could have set the women off at a certain point beforehand and given them the coverage earlier. Again, you've got to then think about like the race organizer has to have the agreed amount of time on whatever network they're being shown, on the television broadcast rights, and what times they can have and how much they want to. It's so complicated.
Yeah. So it isn't just as simple as, oh, well, they should just do it on the same day. There's a lot more to it than...
The principle of it is as simple as that, and it should be that it's possible.
It is possible with the likes of marathons and whatnot.
But a marathon, again, isn't like it isn't like the professional world tour of cycling, and it's not like the Premier League in football. It's not like the people racing for these teams. It's all private. It's all it's not like Formula One. Like those, it's you're racing for your country still, or you're representing your country, and you're an individual, and everything's happening at the same time, and nothing else it sort of encroaches on. The fact that women set off at the same time but go slower doesn't make a difference to what the men do. Whereas it does when you're riding bikes down roads in Siena with 150 women and then 250 men or whatever it is. The logistics of it all become a lot more complex. This is a hot take, and I've gone really down a rabbit hole on it. But I do feel like in the principle of it should be that the women should have the same representation, should have the same amount of airtime, should have the same thought put into how the race is organised. But especially on those same days, it's really hard. Some races have like the Saturdays the women's, the Sundays the men's. Yeah, they do that. That works better. But again, you have that problem where
spectators aren't there,
and there's nowhere near as much in terms of broadcasting. So a lot of the time at the Tour de France, they'd already done the first, like the stages are shorter for the women, which I do understand. I do get that because the women's teams are smaller, the budgets are smaller. Women should have it in the same proportion as men to their physical attributes. So if women are, obviously I'm not saying this is a gross generalization, but if women are 80% as strong numerically as a man, it should be 80% of race so that it's the same. I think that women's football pitches should be a little bit smaller so that the game still feels fast. That's another rabbit hole to get down. But if they can't run as quick, they can't kick as hard. Physically, you can't get around that. That's not a disrespect. That's not me trying to disrespect women. It's just saying that is the physical attributes. So make the game or make the race suit it. I understand that. Yeah. But then you don't get as much airtime. So going back to that about the 2-day races. The women's, maybe it's 110k, whereas the men's might be 200. But the TV won't show the first 80, 50, 60k. They'll come on in the last 40k, or whatever it is. So, because they know that the people won't tune in as much as they will with the men's, because that's on tomorrow. Yeah. So it's really tough. And it isn't fair.
It's fitting all those hours of watch time in your life as well as a spectator, isn't it? Like, if you're gonna watch the tour, the men's tour, and that's hours long, then are you committing another day full of biking as well? Yeah,
I do think that's a good thing about the tour. The men's tour is on before the women's. So the men's tour is in August, the women's is in September. Again, every time I'm on the camera, I just TDF fam. It is definitely. I'm checking it because I don't know if it, because I don't want to look like an idiot. But it is. It's afterwards. The women's tour. I am an idiot.
Yeah. Is it before?
This year, 1st of August is the women's. So don't say I don't fact check this. Tour de France 2026 for the men. No, it's July. So the men's is first. I was going to say I was sure the men's is usually first. Yeah. But it's not far apart, and I actually think that's quite good because that way it's not like people are going, oh well, the men's is going to happen soon, so I'm not going to bother with the women's. But they also don't. It's weird because you don't feel like oh yeah, I've watched the Tour de France already. The Tour de France fam is its own thing, and it gets, I don't know, it gets a different sort of feeling about it, and I really like that. So you can always look forward to the Tour de France fam in the summer, even though you've seen the Tour de France men's. It's its own thing. Whereas when you're trying to compare men's and women's of the same race, and you have to pick, you're gonna rock up for the crescendo, aren't you? So
it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because there's people thinking that it's equality for women's sport, but you can't compare the two.
They're their own sports, aren't they, really, if you think about it?
Yeah.
And the sport exists to be shown to people, and the way that a team survives is with sponsorship. And the way that sponsorships get their money is by it being seen to people and people watching. So it's like this whole circle.
It's just that women's cycling needs to be promoted more. Like, I think they're doing a really good job with the Tour de Femmes now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's getting, like, everyone knows about it.
But in general, do you think that, this is, again, we could just do this all day, that in general, that we will ever get to a point where as many women are bothered about bikes as what men are? Because I don't think that we will. I think we can get to a great, obviously we can improve loads.
Yeah.
But in general, and about a lot of sports, I think that, like, that thing is inherently a masculine trait.
Yeah.
Whether that be man or woman, it doesn't matter. You can be a masculine female or a feminine male. I think that just overall, it would take, you'd need more women to be bothered about cycling than men in order for it to then become equal, I think. Because you need more push to get to the point where, more women need to watch it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise then it's like, I don't know, so it gets a bit weird if all the men need to watch the women race, which they should do. But I don't know. Again, maybe generalising it is wrong in terms of that. I think obviously men watch the women's race, and I love watching the women's race. I love watching women's sports. But yeah, it doesn't grow unless that representation is there. It inspires this younger generation. Like having Nora watch it, I would much rather show Nora the Tour de France fam than the Tour de France, because she can relate and she can get inspired.
Yeah. And we, as my generation anyway, didn't really have that when we was younger. You didn't really see female-only sports. Well, unless it was just me. But you didn't see like a women's tour cycling races and stuff like that on the telly. So it has got a lot better, but
we're going in the right direction. And to answer the hot take, yes, in principle, women should be able to race the same day, but when you think about all of the difficulties and the logistical side and the broadcasting, and there's so much that makes it complicated, and you need to, it's a circus that you have to keep running.
Yeah.
And it doesn't operate well because we didn't have the women involved for a long time as much as we should have done. It doesn't work super smooth at the moment.
Like with the team budgets as well, like couldn't it be eventually where the men's team just have a secondary female team, so the budget is just split amongst?
There is that, but then you've got the problem of, like, if you do that, like, the teams aren't run by a governing body. They're run by people who've run teams. So if they decide, look, yeah, we need to have a women's team because the UCI says so, but we're only going to, we're just going to do it because we have to, and we're going to show, there's nothing stopping someone from doing that. Yeah. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Whereas if a person starts a women's team because they want to start a women's team, they're invested and they will support the women the way that they need to be supported and put as much that they need in there. There is another problem with it, and Dirk told me about this because Dirk was the owner of Ceramicspeed WNT, which sadly is now no longer a team. They finished at the end of last season, but basically he was talking about how positive it is for the ASO and for the UCI to be trying to push more and more races and get the girls to do longer distances to make the sport more exciting and more inspiring for young girls, but the reality is they're not putting money into these teams. And the teams have only got so much sponsorship money and budget because it's not as big. But the demand from the team and the girls themselves. Sorry, I know people don't like when I say girls, but they all the girls that are in Ceramics call themselves girls. They're fine with me calling them girls. All of the women in the team, that sounds more weird to me, are under more pressure because there's less riders. There are less riders in a women's team. So if you all of a sudden bring that up and you need to match the men's, you're going to just like destroy a load of people because they're not going to be able to keep up with the physical demand because relatively they've got to do more because they've got to cover more of the calendar because there's less riders in the team. And then you're making them ride out of the proportion of what that is. So if it's 200k and it's 80% or whatever, you know, the women are doing more. And the teams are struggling and all running out of budget because they can't fly to all these places and get all the mechanics over there and all the equipment. And
that's why I was suggesting about the men's team having a secondary division almost. But yeah, like you say, if they're just doing it because they're being told to do it rather than actually wanting to, they haven't got the
exactly. It's such a minefield. This topic.
Yeah, God, and this could be a whole video on its own. Couldn't it
could
really?
Be. It really could be. And so I would really like to hear people's opinion on this because this, to me, this is something that is a problem, but also we are moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I hope that I haven't come across in any way a part of this of what I've said as like as insensitive or whatever. You got to think of it from the real side of it as of what the problems are.
Yeah.
And I have worked in that world tour, in the women's world tour, for a year and spoken with the riders, the girls as I call them, as they call each other, with the teams, with the mechanics, with the soigneurs, with people from Eurosport about it, with ex-professional riders, with race organisers. Like, I've been in that world.
Yeah.
And everyone is working towards to try and get this to be better, but there are so many factors at play.
Yeah.
And it isn't as simple.
No.
As it should be, but it isn't.
It never is it? Like, it's similar with women's football as well. I feel like that's come a long way in the past, like, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah,
like,
it really has.
That's come on.
But you talk about the thing about so that is a situation where men's teams or teams that were made for men have a women's team, and how they're like, so when Man United were developing their men's like changing rooms and canteen and everything at Carrington, they just chucked the men in the women's one and booted the women into porta cabins.
Oh.
That's what they did.
Because, they're not the priority.
Because the priority is the men.
Yeah.
So they just made the men go in all the women's facilities, and the women got put in the caravan, basically.
That would ring true if it was a similar thing with the men's cycling team.
But that's what you risk, because it's not up to the UCI as to how they just say you've got to have a women's team. That don't fix anything.
I didn't know that about the Manchester United team.
But that's the kind of things that you come across because of that. So you have to be very careful.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a very long hot take. Sorry about that.
I feel like we should maybe do this in a separate video sometime.
I think having people's opinion on it would be really good. Leave a comment below. Something I'm very passionate about, but at the same time, I think there's just a lot of variables.
Yeah, it's complicated, isn't it?